Now, the government says it remains absolutely committed to cracking down on scammers stealing cash from hardworking families.
As part of these measures, the Security Minister will be convening a meeting of the Joint Fraud Task Force to plot out the next steps. Let's speak to the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, now.
Good morning. Tell us more then about this task force.
Good morning. Well, economic crime affects all of us, and there are millions of frauds, large and small, happening right across the country every year. And so it's incredibly important that we use all the resources we can, from local police forces right up to our security services, to tackle it, so we can help people to ensure they get justice when this happens. And so the Security Minister and the Home Secretary are convening a task force to bring all of law enforcement together, along with the high street banks and other agencies, to really get a grip on this important issue.
OK, well, I'm sure a lot of people will be very supportive of that move, unlike suggestions that were first reported in the Sunday Times yesterday, that there could be some discussion or at least exploration of the idea of a sort of Swiss-style relationship with the EU. Now, I know Downing Street has denied this, but as somebody yourself who voted to remain during the referendum in 2016, you'll obviously accept there are benefits in terms of trade to having closer alignment with the European Union. Can you categorically deny that these conversations are going on behind the scenes? Because we know that Chancellor has said there are real barriers that he wants to try and overcome.
Yeah, I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement. There are respectable arguments either way, but we have a settled position now as a country, and we reached an agreement with the European Union in 2019 and 2020, and we're moving forward on that basis. Of course, there are opportunities now to improve our trading relationship, as there are to improve our security and our immigration relationship with the European Union, but we're not interested in reopening the fundamental position that we reached with the EU a few years ago, and we're much more focused now on the opportunities that we can find as a country, as indeed the Chancellor and the Prime Minister set out in the budget, looking at how we can improve financial services, life sciences, other economic relationships, and take advantage of the freedoms that we have as a country now we've left the European Union.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the autumn statement, because the CBI, who are holding a big conference today, and the Prime Minister will be doing a speech there, came out and said, look, Truss's economic plan seemed to be obsessed with growth, whereas Hunt's economic plan seems to be obsessed with inflation. But we want both. Where's the jam tomorrow? And they're coming out and saying, look, we have this huge problem with filling labour roles. There are labour shortages. We need to get people into this country, otherwise we're going to have a dormant economic decade. Would an EU-Swiss-style relationship help solve that problem? Is the CBI sort of saying that? Are you getting that hint from them?
Well, firstly, I don't agree that the budget was silent on the issue of growth. Tackling inflation is the foundation of everything. That gives us financial security. That enables people to pay their mortgage with the lowest possible interest rate. It enables businesses to be able to borrow without paying higher rates. And unless we have that financial security and stability, we won't be able to get the economy firing on all cylinders. And that is what the budget set out to achieve. It was also a budget which invested over £500 billion in our infrastructure, new trains and railways, and hundreds of millions more in R&D, helping us to be a world-leading science country. But on the question of migration, I think the British public want us to bring net migration down. The last year has been an exceptional one. We've seen over 150,000 visas issued for Ukrainians to take refuge here, and we've seen thousands of students and expatriates return to the UK post-COVID. But in the medium term, we want to get migration down. And there's 5 million economically inactive people in this country alone, including over 500,000 who left the workforce as a result of COVID. And so employers should really be looking to the domestic market first, and we in the government are prioritising investment in education and in skills so that we can tackle key labour shortages here first of all.
Robert, as the Minister for Immigration, a huge sticking point, of course, is the numbers of illegals that have been coming over the Channel this year. We spent £220 million with France since 2018, a further £62 million last week, yet 40,000 illegals have come this year. That's a tripling of where we were a couple of years ago with France. You have your own MPs in Peterborough, in Ipswich, Lee Anderson, a Tory rebel in Ashfield, saying this is absolutely outrageous. Residents in Skegness are going to meetings. They're all fed up with asylum seeker hotels being dumped under with no consultation. This is a topic that you seriously need to get to grip with, or it could seriously sink the Conservatives. Isn't that right?
Well, look, we are all in agreement in the Conservative Party. We believe in strong borders and controlled migration, and we're deeply concerned about the number of people crossing the Channel. People should not be making that perilous journey. These are illegal immigrants, and we can see the difference between those fleeing genuine persecution, human rights abuse around the world, and economic migrants coming from countries such as Albania, which are demonstrably safe countries. We're taking action on many different fronts, and the Home Secretary and I are working round the clock to tackle this. I think the new deal with France will make a difference. I don't want to overstate that because, as you say, we've had agreements in the past, but it does do two useful things. Firstly, it means more French officers on those beaches in northern France intercepting the boats. Today they intercept about 40%. That's going to rise significantly with a 40% increase in the number of officers. And secondly, and very importantly, there will now be British personnel in a joint control room in France, using all the intelligence that we gather from our police and security services, people and organisations like GCHQ, ensuring that information is passed to the French in real time, and we can watch and help them to get on the ground, bust those people smuggling gangs, capture the boats, intercept the crews and the migrants as they're leaving the beaches. And so I think it will make a difference, but you have to view it as just one part of a broader campaign, and we are working with the Prime Minister on every front we can to tackle the issue.
I think a lot of people will think they've heard this kind of tough talk before. Priti Patel talked tough like this, Suella Braverman talks tough like this. Is it simply more rhetoric? I mean, for example, people like Lee Anderson would like to see the boats towed straight back. I mean, if that means a diplomatic incident with France, is that not worth a price worth paying? The electorate are just sick and to death of the rhetoric now.
Well, I agree that the public want to see action, not words, and that is exactly what we're setting out to do. This is a very complex issue. All countries around the world are facing this in a global migration crisis. And that's one of the reasons why the Prime Minister has been raising it with his international partners, first in Egypt and now latterly at the G7. But what Suella Braverman and I are going to do is focus on a number of different fronts. We are going to be pushing the diplomatic front. We are going to be looking if there are legal changes that we need to make here in the UK to beef up our laws. We are working with countries which are safe, like Albania. And we're also going to be making it harder for people to work here in the UK by tackling illegal employers. And that links back to the discussion we had earlier about fraud. We need to make sure that companies employing people against the law or committing fraud really get the full force of the law bearing down on them. It's not going to be an easy situation to tackle, but we, the Conservative Party, the Home Secretary and I are fully focused on it as one of our key priorities as a government.
OK, Minister, look, I know we have to let you go because you've got a busy morning of interviews. If you wouldn't just mind indulging me with a yes or no answer, is Harry Kane right to wear a One Love LGBTQ+ armband during the World Cup today in the opening match against Iran?
I think he is. It's completely at his liberty to do that. We are a country that believes in freedom and liberty and values like protecting LGBT communities, and it's right that Harry Kane or the British team support them if that's what they want to do.
OK, very kind of you to give me that answer. Listen, Robert Jenrick, Immigration Minister, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.